Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Road Dead Chronicles. I am Dean, and once again, I have Devin with me.
Hey guys, hopefully everyone is enjoying the little summer slowdown with TCG and is getting ready for this upcoming set that we're getting in the middle of the summer. I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, I know at first glance, I'm like, oh, this is super underwhelming. There's really not a lot going on with this. And we were talking off camera, and we're like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of new cards coming in that are going to be really impactful. So I'm excited to dive into this new mini set just because it has like what 200 cards.
180 or so cards, yeah. So two 90 card sets is effectively what we're getting.
Yeah, and I think that's important to just kind of talk about real quick. Is that these are technically two mini sets that we are getting at the same time. So
Yeah,
with the summer stuff, we typically don't see that.
yeah. So when you are going to be purchasing this product, there is going to be two sets. One is going to be Black Bolt, the other one is going to be White Flare, and
Yes.
they will have their own card sets a part of them. Now, we don't know at time of recording if the numbering, like, so say if it's going to be out of 180 or is it going to be two sets out of 90-ish. So when you are getting the cards and you're looking through them, that may be something that will be a little different. Um, Very attuned to Pokemon Pocket when they have their two booster packs within a set, like the Lunala and the Solgaleo set, had their own cards that only were found in those packs. But they will be the same regulation mark.
Yes.
So
Which I think we're going to be in the same regulation mark for another couple months. So
yeah, it's just one of those situations. Sometimes people worry about that, so I wanted to throw that information out there. But as always, we are going to go in traditional set review order. We're going to go in the order of the typings that would be in an ETB little manual. Um, so we are going to start off with the grass Pokemon like we always do. And when we discuss a card, we will discuss what set it came out of in the Japanese set, which is a good assumption that will be coming out in these Western sets.
exactly, yeah. So we're excited. There is a lot to go through. More than I was expecting. So if we go a little fast, that's pretty much why. But also be on the lookout because these are considered mini sets. I know I've been getting this question a lot at my local league. There is no pre-release for this. This
No
is a mini set. Is not a regular. It's not part of the regular release cycle. These will just come out as like blisters or as
boxes,
ETBs. You'll not see a booster box for these.
no.
Even if it was a regular set, you probably, unless you pre-order, you won't see a booster box of these.
Hmm.
Um,
So
but
imagine
let
blisters, packs, ETBs, specific products focusing on certain cards. I know that the Reshiram and Kiram EX boxes were teased the other day on social media. So that is how you're going to be able to get the packs of these sets. But more than likely, go onto the singles market if you're looking for particular cards. The singles market's going to
mhm,
how you're going to be able to get the cards the easiest because everything else is going to be a little harder to get in terms of a product.
exactly, and also one other thing, if I remember correctly, they're saying that every one of these cards are going to have alternate arts as well because
That
this
would
is
be
more a
awesome.
collector set than a plain set per se. Granted, we're going to go through cards and their playability index, but this is really aimed towards the collector's market, which I think will be really cool because if you're looking for a nice, easy way to bling out a deck, these are the cards to do it with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that all being said, Dean, are you ready to dive into these cards?
Yes, let's start off with the grass Pokemon. And real quick, and like really quick into the set, we don't have to even scroll down that much. There's a card we want to talk about,
Yeah.
and that's Superior EX. So, Devin, why don't you want to let everyone know what this card does?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Superior X is going to be a stage 2 grass Pokemon, 320 HP. It is going to be in the Black Bolt half of the set. And the reason why I think it's an interesting card is its ability Royal Cheer. Attacks used by your Pokemon do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So we have an Anthem effect in the grass archetypes. So the important part for this is this ability does stack. So if you have multiple superiors in play, you'll be able to have multiple damage multipliers with the ability in play. I
Hmm.
think the best partner for this deck is going to be Yamega because Yamega is able to move energy around and search for it fairly quickly. And Superior's attack is for 4 energy, grass, triple colors, 150, but you search your deck for 3 cards and put them in your hand. So the attack for Superior is alright, especially with a partner like Yamega, but I really think this Royal Cheer ability is the piece that will see it in play most. Being a stage 2 EX that is a bench sitter does feel really bad. So partnering up with a grass attacker or a different attacker in general that can accelerate energy for you to be able to utilize the grass order attack might be the best route with it. I'm intrigued on how some people are going to, if they even look at this card in terms of being a damage modifier. But for me, my first instinct is Superior EX, Yamega EX, and kind of see what happens for that.
I know it's maybe a little clunky, but I'm also seeing maybe playing this in like a box like deck like Ho-Oh-EX with Armarouge, because a lot of times you're just short with that 20, and even just having one of these on your bench can make your math. Like I'm thinking about with Iron Hands, you
Mm.
only hit 120, and even with the booster capsule, you hit 140. Sometimes you need that 160 to kind of get your damage up there. So I'm thinking, because it doesn't specify it has to be on, it increases grass Pokemon. It just
No,
says Pokemon's attacks.
yeah,
So it
it's
can
a
be paired up with anything to increase that your damage output.
yeah, it's a universal anthem. So for sure, it can be put up with anyone. Like I said, if a stage 2 bench setter with a good ability is always worth a spot in a deck, but if you want to maximize its value, you're going to have to put it with a deck partner that can either put energy on it really quickly or be able to move energy onto it. Like you said, Armarouge is a really good shout because you're able to put energy onto the superior with Armarouge's ability. I don't know if Ho-Oh EX Armarouge box is the best spot for it, but I can definitely see the theory behind it because again, it's a stage 2, so 111 line or 101 line with a rare candy for a deck like that where it already has tight spots. But I can see maybe a different archetype coming out of it for sure.
Yeah, it's I say any tool like box that plays grass energy or a way to enact a grass energy will be very good. Like you said, Yamega is probably the best partner with it because of its attack and ability. But I'm ready to see the creativity around this card and see how it does see play.
Hmm.
So next up, something that you pointed out to me, it's is really two cards we're going to look at together that pair really well,
Hmm.
and it's going to be the Lilligant from Black Bolt and the Amoonguss from Black Bolt. So the Lilligant is a stage 1 grass type Pokemon, 100 HP, and it has the attack called Bemusing Aura for 1 grass, so super easy to power up. You do 30 damage. But you flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active is paralyzed and poison. It tails, the Pokemon is confused.
The opponent's Pokemon
So
is confused, so none of this goes back on you in any way, shape, or form with this coin flip.
yeah, so it's all really much like I would say it's a winning situation,
Hmm.
and we have the Amoonguss, which has 1 colorless attack cost, dangerous reaction 30 plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, you do 120 more damage.
Yeah.
So those two Pokemon pair really well because with either status condition, you are making your opponent retreat, and if they cannot retreat, that status is on there for the next turn. You retreat into the Amoonguss, and then you're hitting for 150 easily.
Hmm. And if you get heads, the paralysis forces your opponent to use a switching card, not a retreating option.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be one of those situations where either part of those coin flip, it's heads I win, tails you lose. It's a really good feel when you're doing a coin flip. It's just a question of which special condition is getting put on there. There's a couple other cards in this set that can inflict status conditions fairly easily to trigger a Mungus. Another card is going to be the Volcarona, which we're going to go over quickly, which has an ability to trigger burn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a bad thing. So this Amoonguss can be very powerful because again, it's a colorless attack. So it's one of those situations where you could put a Mungus with another typings that focuses on special conditions, and it can just sit and synergize very well because it's a low energy attacker.
And the cool thing is, since there's a lot of dark Pokemon out there, you're hitting for 150. Dark Pokemon are weak to grass. You're hitting for 300, and with the special conditions, that depending which special conditions on your opponent's active, it can knock them out through the condition, which then you get your prizes, and it doesn't proc cards like Pheasantipity or EXP share. Because I was playing a deck last night where they kept on knocking me out with poison. I had an EXP share on my bench. I couldn't move my energy and power up my Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So this type of strategy has always been really powerful, and having it on a stage 1 Pokemon or stage 1 a single prize Pokemon that hits for a strong weakness right now that's relevant. I think this is a winning combination if you're looking for something that's little out there but is easily achievable to pull off.
I think throwing a Mungus into the Poison Donk archetype is super easy to do. A 1/1 or 2/2 with the Petrant engine, super easy to do because you're triggering the poison with the Brubonnet. So again, there's homes for this card. I'm very curious if it's going to just kind of carve out its own rogue archetype or just get plugged into some existing archetypes just to add a little more power to their early game attack.
Yeah, so this may be something that we will mess around with, see if we can find something really fun to do. I know my shop's trying to do more rogue deck makes, so this could be something I could bring.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next card I want to talk about is the Whimsicott EX. It's from
Mm-hmm.
White Flare. I think this card is going to be a lot more impactful than a lot of people think on the surface. So it has 2 different single energy attacks. So the first one is Energy Gift. Search your deck for 3 basic energy and attach them to a Pokemon any way you like. So the reason why I think this attack is important is because of the effect of the second, or what the second attack says. So again, another attack, Wonder Cotton for single grass energy. 50 times, your opponent reveals their hand. This attack does 50 for each trainer you find. So if your opponent has a fairly large hand size, you're going to Wonder Cotton to see if you can get the KO. If your opponent has a hand size that's small or you know their hand is full of non-trainers, then you can Energy Gift to set up your bench. And
Mm-hmm.
you can do that with Whimsicott's free retreat. So if you are just using it as a pivoter, you can absolutely do so with the setup or the damage. So it can fulfill multiple roles in a grass deck or a deck that can give you one simple grass energy. Because I'm seeing a theme throughout these sets of trainer card hate. And we're going to see a couple
Mm-hmm.
other cards that definitely do not like you having trainers in your hand. And I think this is going to shift the post Worlds format to where decks are going to be thinner on their trainer cards going forward.
Yeah, um, this was one of the first cards I really looked at. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. 230 HP isn't the best, especially on a stage 1 EX, but the low energy requirements for both attacks, I'm also seeing this as like an easy way, like I know I said it before, a toolbox, because the first attack is 3 basic energy. It doesn't specify which energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're playing a deck that just needs 1 energy cost for something, you can pull out any energy, kind of like with Goldango or something like that, and just attach and set up your bench any way you want. One card I think of right away is the Scizor. The baby Scizor with the punching scissors attack only needs 1 metal energy. You can get that powered up real quick. You can get another Pokemon powered up, and you can have like 3 attackers ready to go, retreat with the free retreat, and then just go at it. So if this card provides a lot of flexibility in your gameplay, depending on how you can set up your bench. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really strong card. Definitely a more of a support role. Yes, you can attack with it, but it's something your opponent can easily play around. But if they can't, they will get punished by that.
Yeah, like I think Wonder Cotton is going to be a really good attack early game. Like stage turn 2, you can just punish what's ever in the active very easily because you really are just aiming for 150 at that point. Get an early KO, move on, and kind of see what your opponent's going to react, knowing that, oh crap, if I keep these trainers in my hand, I'm going to keep on getting affected by this. Like, you're in a good position with either attack, I believe.
And one thing I also just realized about the attack, your opponent reveals their hand.
Yes.
So at the very least, you get an idea of what they're playing with next turn, and then you can find a way to play around that your next turn. So if you see like, oh, they have all these trainers, they have a lot of options. Okay, I need to find like an Iono, or I need to find X card in your deck to play around what strategy they're doing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is a very this attack. Like I said, this is going to be a very strong early game attacker because you're gaining not just prizes, but you're gaining knowledge.
Yes. So definitely, I think a card to keep an eye on going forward.
Oh yeah. I mean,
with that, I think that's it for the grass type. You want to move on to fire type right now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, grass doesn't have a lot of grass, but what we talked about, we just talked about some very impactful cards. So be on the lookout for grass going with this set post Worlds for sure.
Yeah. So with a fire, again, just like the grass, like we don't have to go far into the set to find a really good fire Pokemon. And in this one, we're bringing Rain Dance back, but fire style. So a little spicy, if you want to say, with the Emboar. So stage 2 fire type Pokemon, 180 HP, has the ability Inferno Fandango. So when this card was released, there was a lot of talk around this. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon.
Yes.
So fire has a lot of support, or has support now.
Yeah, and this ability is only as good as the fire Pokemon in the format that it exists in. But we're going to see very shortly there's going to be a couple really good fire Pokemon in this set that can be paired with it. Obviously, future sets are going to love this card. Keep in mind, we are getting Mega Pokemon in the not-so-distant future. So there's a lot of fire Mega Pokemon that are probably going to love Emboar as a partner. Right now, fire's in a very interesting place in the current meta with the Descent Rival cards in the Descent Rival meta that we're existing in, because the best fire deck really is a single energy attacking deck, so no need to have it there. But the other decks that really love fire have its own forms of acceleration, so this is definitely going to carve its own niche into the meta because it won't just slip into pre-existing archetypes. It's going to create its own.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll see how it fits in. I can already think of a couple decks that it will go in. I know there's a Ho-Oh a cargo deck, and that archetype is fine in itself, but I know the attaching energy can be a little difficult just because once you get energy on that Macargo, it can't free retreat anymore. So you can get the Macargo in play, use the Infernal Fandango to power up its attack, and that could be another solution to that instead of using the Ho-Oh's ability and having multiple Ho-Ohs out. Granted that it makes the deck a little more clunky, but it is an option. I think this card will actually be very powerful in GLC as well.
Oh, for
since it is
sure.
a non-rule box Pokemon, so I can't wait to see people add this in their list.
So Fire Fandango is already played in GLC. It's just a harder card to get a hold of. It is more expensive because it was a black and white card. So this just brings this ability into more of a cheaper version for GLC fire decks for sure.
Which is a big deal because GLC can be expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've seen those cards and I'm like, whoa.
Absolutely, it can be expensive. Another card that I think is going to be impactful, not just in the standard, but I think can be affected and be good in GLC, is the Volcarona we mentioned earlier. It's from the Black Volt set. It has the ability Heatwave Scales. So once you're in turn, you may discard a basic fire energy from your hand in order to leave your opponent's active Pokemon burned. And then has Fire Wing for Fire Triple Colorless. It does 70 damage. I think the 70 is relevant in GLC because grass is fairly popular. It can one-shot a lot of grass Pokemon, a lot of metal Pokemon in GLC. But in the standard, we just talked about Amoonguss. This is another way to trigger another status condition for your Amoonguss to take advantage of.
Yeah, so you can easily make a status condition deck because we have that Magmortar from Journey Together where it increases your burn damage. So you can do that. You have poison. Just figure out what the best combination for these cards, and you can easily play a fun deck without even technically getting prizes from from damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, I'm gonna probably circle back to this a couple times. The Amoonguss does not need grass energy. So you
No,
can
it
throw
doesn't.
an Amoonguss into that fire deck and just be like, all right, here's a whole bunch of burn. I'm going to attack with a grass attacker, open up your coverage a little bit, and then you just have a low energy, low single prize beat stick effectively because you're doing 150 consistently turn over turn over turn before damage manipulation with the status condition before, I don't know, a tool card that we're probably going to talk about later today. So definitely a lot of different ways. Like I think the Amoonguss is going to be a sneaky card that you will be able to put in a lot of different decks. And
Honestly, so there's that burn deck from a couple regionals ago that if you look at the results, it got last place in day 2. As we know by now, the guy had a drop from the tournament because he had a work emergency, and he actually won round 10 and gave the win to his opponent because, like, hey, I gotta go. Good luck rest of the tournament. And he plays the Volcanion EX in there. I
ooh,
can see you taking out the Volcanion, adding the Volcarona, because the Volcanion requires you to be in the active. This card does not. You just have to discard a fire energy.
yeah,
So it opens up the status conditions for the Amoonguss to really be powerful, and having like you said, the type coverage. We can have play with the poison. You can play with the fire, the burn. You can have a dark attacker, a fire attacker, and a grass attacker. It just opens up a lot of the possibilities if you want to try and play a single prize deck and just copy something that's already been proven to be good.
yep, absolutely. And then the last fire Pokemon that I want to talk about is one of the poster boys of the set from White
Mm-hmm.
Flare, Reshiram EX. The second attack, double fire colorless, blaze burst, 130, and this it does 50 more damage for each prize your opponent is already taken, but you have to discard an energy from this card. That's fine. This is definitely a late game beat stick attacker for sure.
Yes, I know. Me and my friends have already started experimenting with this set in different archetypes, and this is very similar to two other cards that we will see later on in this set. And if they take 3 prize cards, you're hitting for. In this case, you're hitting for what
280. 280
two
as a
eighty
fire attacker.
as a fire attacker. If they take 4, you're hitting way more than that. So you're knocking out anything in the format. Um, it is strong, yet it's only 230 HP. But as a basic Pokemon, 230 is kind of hard to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy math. So it is definitely a good possibility as in any fire deck going forward. As we see, we're getting a lot more fire support. So this may not be good now and not for the world, but once we get into the mega set, we can see what they add in there, and this may become even more powerful.
I see this restaurant ram going straight into the Rouge archetype. Um,
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
it can be a late. So Ho-Oh Armor just sometimes struggle with late game damage, like especially trying to hit larger numbers because they rely on either the Clefairy or the Terapagos to really hit the higher numbers. So you can take out either one of them. You can probably take out a card that you don't feel is good, like maybe the Heartflame, the Hearthflame Mask Ogerpon, and just flip fire for fire right there, and that way you'd be able to just continue. And this could, like we said, be a late game sweeper for you in those matchups.
Yeah, in that deck, that doesn't take. It takes nothing to set this up because you have the Ho-Oh. You get the 2 energy from the Ho-Oh. Get this into the active. Use Armrouge to move the 2 energy on there. Manual attach, and then boom, you're completely set up.
Mhm.
It sounds like a lot, but in that deck, that's not a hard combination to pull off.
That's a standard turn, especially
Yeah,
late game in that deck. That's a standard turn for sure. So I think Reshiram, if it doesn't get his own archetype, it's going to be plugged right into a toolbox that already exists, and I think it makes that toolbox a little better.
I can see that, and I totally agree with that because I know you and me. This is something that we both were talking about, and I'm used to playing a toolbox like deck with Arceus when that was around. So that's one of my decks I'm thinking about experimenting with going forward for the new season for competitive play.
Absolutely. So with that, that's all the fire types. These sets are just there's cards of every type that's going to be impactful. We kind of skipped over about half the fire, but again, there's so much we want to just highlight the key pieces, and there's no way we can't talk about one of the two logos of the set right there of that restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. So next we'll go to the water Pokemon. And the first one that we're going to go to is another starter Pokemon. So all the starters are really good in this set.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about Samurott. It's another single prize a card, 160 HP with the ability Raging Rapids. Once during your turn, you may switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Then your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon. It made that sound cool because, like, oh, your opponent can choose which Pokemon to switch into. It's kind of like what's that card right now that does Iron Bundle.
Yeah.
It's like they can choose, but we'll talk about a super powerful card later on that I think this is at least an answer for that counter, which is going to be the Jellicent.
Yes.
Because that shuts you down. If you can get that out of play without using any cards, which unless you play boss, I think this is going to be one of your answers to it. Because Jellicent shuts down items and tools.
Well, I also think Samurott's also going to find very fun partners in a couple cards. One card in this set that we're going to talk about in a second, the Caldeo EX, is going to love the fact that it has Samurott as a buddy. I think the Iron Valiant card would love to see Samurott as a buddy because
Ooh,
they're
yeah.
both. Samurott's attack here, we'll talk about in a second, they can pair up really well together. Really, any card that needs or wants to have a switch partner, Samurott is going to be the partner. Yes, it is a stage 2, but we've seen stage 2 partners, and especially with a low energy attack, this will find a good, fun little kind of niche. Its attack is for a single water energy slash. It does 30 base damage, and there's 50 more for every energy attached to this Pokemon. So really does 80 base damage because it has one energy already attached to it. But you can ramp this up a little bit based on different types of energy in play. It doesn't have to be water energy, so if you want to pair it up with a non-water partner, you can just put more energy on it, and it can be one of these mid to late game that has an infinite damage cap. So it has a lot of capabilities, a lot of future partnerships. The question is going to be, how good is it going to be? Because water isn't really hitting a lot of things for weakness right now. So with lightning becoming stronger, with water becoming weaker, is Samurott in a spot right now where it can be maximized? Or is this going to be a get this in your binder, get at least 2 of them in your binder, and hold off until maybe a couple sets from now to see if water gets better or fire gets better? Because if fire gets better, water gets better.
Exactly. And if at the very least, this is a great GLC card. You don't really need a lot to one shot a lot of the big Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
There's a water deck right now that actually revolves around special energy with the reversal. This pairs really well with it because if you're behind in prizes, the reversal is 3 energy right there. That's 150 already.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of ice dance cards in that deck too. So let's say at the very least, if you're into GLC and you're playing the water deck, look at this card. Like Samurai, it's pretty good, and I'm sure you can find other Oshawotts and Dewatts to go with it that are older that may be a better pair with it compared to the cards in this set. But yeah, this card, by reading it, it's very powerful. We just need to see how can we practically execute it.
Absolutely. And then the next water card I want to talk about, when I saw it, I freaked out. It's, believe it or not, the Tortuga.
Yes.
Not the Caracasa, just the Tortuga.
Yeah,
Um,
this caused quite a stir when it first got released because everyone was like, okay, we are getting Garbodor. Are they bringing back Trashlanch? And
yes,
then we got our answer.
yes.
And it wasn't with Garbodor.
Yeah, it's Trashlanch is back, but it's under a different typing and a different name. So Tortuga is a stage 1 that evolves from the cover fossil. Its attack for single water energy is Ancient Debris. It is 30 damage, and it's 30 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. Now, this is very specific. It says item card, not trainer. And then when Garbodor was a thing, tool cards were item cards, but they're not anymore. So I said earlier that this set is going to make playing trainer cards thinner in deck builds.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the cards going to definitely impact that. We thought that the Budew would do that, but the Budew is a flash in the pan kind of card where it does kind of suck, but with having 30 HP, it was very easy to get around very quickly. With this Tortuga being a stage 1 100 HP, it's a little harder to get around. It only gives up a single prize. You can stream these very easily, and it's one of these situations where even if you absolutely have to, you could even run the Caracosta, which is the stage 2 evolution, 180 HP, that has the ability Mighty Shell. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks of your opponent that has special energy attached to it. So if you want to have a couple of these in the deck and then run the Relicanth, where you can have the Caracosta use the memory ability of the Relicanth to do the Ancient Debris, you can definitely run that combination and really make a fun little fossil deck.
Yeah, so the only, like you said, the big downside of this card is that it does come from, it evolves from an item card. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to find it, put it on your bench. You can't start with it. So it's a little more difficult. But like you said, it's not that hard to pull off. We have cards like Arven. We have decent draw in the game right now. And if you play a 4 of, the likelihood of you finding it in your first turn or two is very high.
Yep.
So as long as you build around it, I think you'll be fine. This will be another fun stage 1 deck to pull off and really go against that trainer hate. Honestly, you can probably build a whole archetype with trainer hate right now and be really, really cool. So this is definitely a very easy way to do it, a fun way. So if you're looking for a way to punish your opponents having large hands, I
This
would
is
say
it.
look at this, especially if you think that's very common in your local area. You may get a lot of quick wins. That's all I want to say.
Yes. It can cause a lot of pressure. I remember when Trashlanch was in the standard when I was playing, and it definitely made an adjustment to how heavy your trainer and item cards were at the time. And it turned into I need to counter Garbodor. And then after a certain point, you're like, I'm already at a point of no return. You're KOing me if I have 10 items or 30 items. Once you hit a number, you just kept on playing as normal. I feel like this is going to cause players to have to rethink that. So I'm
and
definitely interested to see what happens.
and one thing I want to point out, this is 30 times.
Yes,
So
Garbodor was
as soon as
20.
they hit 300 or 10 trainers in their discard, which is super easy to do,
Items.
you're
This one
hitting
is
300
items.
damage.
This one is items, not just trainers. So that is going to be a key difference this time around.
True, but 10 items in your discard is still not hard to
Oh,
achieve.
absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Super easy.
Especially with cards like Ultra Ball, Earthen Vessel, like where you have to discard stuff. You're
Mm-hmm.
making your opponent discard energy and supporters or even tools instead. Like it's a win in for you no matter what, because they're either going to be powering up your attack or they're going to be discarding cards that will make them play the game better. So
Yeah,
you're putting a lot of pressure on them, and yeah, it's a good strategy all around.
absolutely. So, so I'm going to cover Keldeo EX real quick since we just talked about the Samurott. So the Keldeo EX is a basic water Pokemon 210 HP that has the Gale Thrust attack. It is 30, and if this Pokemon is from your bench to the active this turn, it does 90 more damage. So 120 for 2 energy is all right. It isn't the greatest, but with Samurott, this you can continuously switch your Keldeos in at turn over turn over turn to where
Mm-hmm.
Keldeo can be streamlined very easily. And if you just want to do a shred for 120 with Sonic Edge, you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, so it's not the best card in the world, but it's not the worst card.
No.
It, like you said, when paired with the right Pokemon, it can do okay.
I would
I
not
wish
make.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't make a deck around Keldeo. I would have Keldeo be a supporting piece to another water archetype.
Yeah, absolutely. It just doesn't hit enough. It with the Samurai, the first attack does make it a whole lot easier. So you can always build a deck, like you said, put a one-off in that list just to kind of get some easy damage. So you're doing 120. If you only need 120, boom, you got it. Very easy to achieve that. If you need a shred attacker, this provides that as well. But yeah, like you said, don't build a deck around this. Add this to a deck where if you're looking for this key piece where you need a shred attacker or you need something that can easily hit like the 120, pick this one. But yeah, it's a cool card. It's Keldeo. It's always a fan favorite.
Yes.
I will say the next card we want to talk about is another one of the poster childs of the set with Kyurem EX. So yeah. Kyurem EX is another basic state or 2 prize water Pokemon. It has 2 attacks, but we'll talk about the second attack for Water, Colorless, Blizzard Burst. So we talked about Reshiram, now we're talking about Kyurem. So 130, but the difference with this card is that it does 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each prize card they have taken. So if they've taken 4 prizes, all their Pokemon get 4 damage counters on the bench.
Yes.
So not as strong as Reshiram in my opinion, but it's still pretty good, especially if you're playing like a spread-like deck.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's a quintessential Blizzard style attack. It's an ice type Pokemon, right? So unless your opponent has a way to block bench damage, which is only certain ways right now, this card actually can have more impact than maybe the Reshiram or Zekrom, because it may not be hitting for a lot of upfront KOs, but it can set up your game state in the middle of it to get you a stronger late game.
Yeah, and if they play a lot of low HP Pokemon, you can get easy prizes this way once they take 3 or even more. I'm thinking you can knock out Budews, you can knock out Clefas. There's a new Dynamo that's coming out in this set that's only 40 HP, which we'll probably talk about next as we get into the Lightning Pokemon.
Yep.
So if they've taken a lot in the mid game, I feel like this can be super powerful if their board isn't set up.
Yeah, this card will punish your opponent if they go all in on a one attacker. If they're not going to create a wide or healthy board state, you can take advantage of that by taking multiple prizes or even just crippling their bench to where when they do have to promote, they're in your one-shot range already.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of different strategies with the water decks as well. So that's the water Pokemon. Now we're going to lightning Pokemon.
Yes. And then the first Pokemon we are talking about is absolutely that Dynamo line, but it's not the Dynamo. It is the Electric. So Electric is bringing back Dynamotor into the format. So Dynamotor has not been legal since Noble Victories. So, but there's a caveat with this. So let's read off what Dynamotor does first, and then we'll talk about what the caveat is. So Dynamotor says, once during your turn, you may attach a basic lightning card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, so you can just put it anywhere on your bench. But this is not a reprint. This is a new card that has a very similar ability. Yes, there was an Electric back in the day that had Dynamotor, but the cards are too different for it to be considered a reprint. They actually changed the language of Dynamotor to specifically include basic lightning Pokemon versus just lightning energy last time. So,
you got that backwards.
Is it backwards?
This is basic lightning energy.
Yes.
Instead of just saying lightning energy.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry. You said basic lightning Pokemon.
Sorry. No, I meant lightning energy. So And the reason why that's important is because back when Noble Victories was a thing, there were special lightning energy, but they weren't considered lightning energy when they were sitting in the discard pile, so they weren't really legal targets. But this is going to prevent any discard energy that could be considered lightning in the future or even now. So they wanted to make sure you are only targeting basic energy with this ability.
So with that being said, do you think they'll create a errata so that way you can use the Noble Victories card?
No. Because if they haven't errated it in Japan, they're not going to errata it now.
Gotcha.
And that's the only reason why I'm saying no, they won't do an errata, because they effectively made a whole different card for this.
Okay. So if you have those old cards, keep them in the binder. You have to get the card from Black Bolt, unfortunately. But
or standard.
Yeah, for standard. So, because I honestly thought like, oh, this is going to be a reprint, because this is the first card that they talked about when like, oh, reprints are coming back. But I'm glad that the website that we're using, shout out to justinbasil.com, has this disclaimer in there, because it's educating the public about this, because now we know you can't use the Noble Victory card. You have to use this new one because of that language change.
Yes.
So, with all that being said, the Dynamotor is still pretty powerful. I know me and my friends are experimenting with this card. And one thing to note, because this is something actually I taught my friend last night, it doesn't specify bench lightning Pokemon. It just says bench Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a way to get energy onto your bench. It doesn't have to be lightning. You can play it with an odd partner, but you have to have a bench target. So you have to make sure that there's something on the bench for it to go to. If you only have the Dynamotor Electric in the active, and that's your only card, then the ability is not functional.
Well, it is. It will just go to that Electric, which is not what you're looking for.
It has to go to a benched Pokemon. So the Electric.
Oh yeah, this isn't the active. Yes, yeah.
Yes, it has to go to a bench. So there is some mechanics to this ability that you have to be very well aware of.
So I would say this is definitely going to revitalize, re-energize, if you want to say. Yeah.
You're lucky.
The Lightning decks, even though we have the Joltik box, I think this will be a more straightforward version than Joltik box for a lot of the Lightning decks, specifically like Miraidon. There's another card we'll talk about that is going to pair well with this archetype as well. But yeah, the Lightning decks are coming back.
Yes, and they're going to get another very strong attacker. And again, the last of the Tau Trio, the Zekrom EX. It has a attack for double Lightning Colorless, Voltage Burst. It does 130, and then it does 50 damage for each prize card you've taken. However, instead of discarding an energy like Reshiram does, you give yourself 30 damage. So there's that give and take. That is where the yin and yang of Reshiram and Zekrom come into play. They have two different secondary effects, but they do have the same damage calculating of the attacks.
Yeah, so this is, I would say, the missing piece for the Miraidon deck, because it doesn't really hit hard once you get into the late game. This gives you that. It's the Raichu all over again, but a little easier to set up too, especially with those electrics. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, Lightning is coming back. They brought back a lot of key pieces. So we'll see how this deck plays into the meta. This is definitely going to be a meta deck for sure. Doesn't mean we're not going to experiment with it as rogue deck lovers, because sometimes we need to play something powerful. If we're going for our points or something like that, we will choose to play something that's a little more on the meta side. And this is a great option to do it. And if you've already played like Joltik Box, or you've played Miraidon in the past, this is a very easy deck to pick up again, because you already know those mechanics and the intricacies of that deck.
Yes, absolutely. And with that being said, that kind of wraps up the Electric. Believe it or not, Electric has like the fewest of any Pokemon in this set. There's really not a lot of new Electric cards that's being added. Zekrom is the post-trial Black Bolt, which is why we didn't say which set it is, as you would know it as you open up the packs. But now it's time for us to dive into the Psychic types.
So I'm looking through Psychic, and there's one card that actually is really interesting to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Gothitelle. So it's
Yeah.
a stage 2 Psychic Pokemon, 150 HP, and has the ability Twisted Future. It is from the White Flare set. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may have your opponent shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 3 cards. For a Psychic and Colorless Energy, Synchro Shot, 90 damage plus. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, this does 90 more damage. So you can easily match up the hand size with your opponent and do 180 damage as a single prizer with Psychic. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's going back to these attacks that want you to have the same hand size as your opponent. Now, those historically have always been kind of hard to manipulate. Even with Gothitelle's ability, you're still going to have to somehow get your hand size to 3 every single time. So, you just have to make sure you're being efficient and being smart with your hand sizes when you're doing everything, but it's very much doable. Another card from the White Flare set that I want to actually talk about is Takafas Grigas. The Grigas has a attack for Psychic Collis, elongating Damages. Basically, it says move all your damage counters from one of your bench Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So if you have a high HP Pokemon that has a lot of damage on it, they didn't knock it out, you can just move all those damage counters onto your opponent's side. You could get a KO using that damage. You could just set up KOs. But at the end of the day, you're removing damage counters from your side of the board, and you are giving yourself a healthier board state.
Yeah, this reminds me of the Team Rocket's Wobbuffet. But the big difference here is that it doesn't specify the opponent's active. It just says opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah.
So this can go onto the bench.
Yep, you can just put it onto a Pokemon and get a KO, and just eliminate the damage counters off the board entirely. I think that's important because of the rise and usage of Munkidori, where you really kind of don't want to give your opponent damage counters because they're just going to give them back to you in small chunks. Where if you can just get a KO out of it and just remove them from play entirely, I think that is a better solution as your attack for turn.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's really fun. It's only a stage 1. It's not hard to really power up. Let's see. Any other Psychic Pokemon? Oh, yeah, there's 2 more Psychic Pokemon we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. One's from Black Bolt and the other one's from White Flare.
All right, Steen, you take the first one.
Okay, so the first one is from Black Bolt. It's Meloetta EX. Has the ability Live Debut. If you go first, this Pokemon can attack on its first turn.
Yes.
And we've seen stuff like this before, and it's like, okay, cool, I can do a setup attack. No, you're actually doing damage. Echo Voice, 30 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon's Echo Voice does 80 more damage.
Yeah, so you're setting up a turn 2 110 very quickly.
Yes. And not just that, but there's a famous ladder donk deck right now that you can put this Meloetta in there, and you can pair it with Poison, you can pair it with Iron Valiant, you can pair it with Perilous Jungle. That 30 damage easily turns into way more once you get all those pairings into it. And if anything, if they start out with Budew, you're knocking out the Budew, okay, fine. You won the game that way. If you need to get damage modifiers and you start off with something a little smaller, it's not hard to do that. You can pair it with Poison. Like I said, you can pair it with other mechanics to easily move that 30 to something greater and get the first turn donk, just like with the old cloth deck, with the old other donk archetypes. This just makes donk even a little more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other card from White Flare you kind of talked about already is the Jellicent EX. It has the Sea Curse ability. As long as Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item or any tool cards from their hand. So you're going to be locking their hand, you're going to be locking your opponent, and then you have another attack here, Power Press. It does 80, and if you have 2 other energy attached to it, so its base energy is Psychic Colorless, so you need a 4 total energy to it, and then it does 160 instead of 80. Really, if you're putting the Jellicent in your active spot, you're okay with just poking with 80 turn over turn over turn, because it has 3 retreat. So if in your active spot you're not retreating it, you're gonna sync with this. So they have to power through your Jellicent while you are locking them down.
So this is getting paired up with Gardevoir. This actually made a big impact in the Japan National Championships. I think there was like at least 4 of these decks that made the top 16.
Mm-hmm.
So Gardevoir is a great partner for this. If you're listening to the podcast, you most likely already know that. This is going to be a very annoying card to deal with because it doesn't just lock down your items, it locks down your tools as well.
Yes.
So you can't even play Rescue Board. You can't even play your TM, your technical machine cards to change out of this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to play a Gust Supporter unless you have an active that can deal with it. This is a very annoying card for your for any strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, that is all the Psychic Pokemon. I think the Psychic type cards in this set are going to be a lot of fun to play with. I'm going to be super excited to get my hands on them on the ladder to kind of show off the different kind of tricks they can do outside of the straight raw abilities that the last 2 EX cards have given us. So I'm excited to see how this Psychic typing changes some of the decks and can create their own archetypes on the ladder for us to play around with for sure. So
next we go into the fighting type Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that stands out to you for the fighting type, Devin?
I mean, I want to say Exegro EX could be good, but there's too much setup with that card where the Penetrating Drill attack for 2 fighting to 60 and then 60 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has damage on it. I don't know how you could pair up Exegro with something else that have damage right now. But it looks super powerful, especially because it can be done so quickly. And then the Rock Tumble for 200 for 3 fighting is not affected by resistance. So it's always going to be 200 unless it hits into an effect, but it can be more if it hits into a weakness. Fighting is a very relevant typing because of how strong the Lightning archetype is going to become. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these fighting decks become more popular because they're there just to purely counter the electric decks.
I think this is a card to hold off until we get the Mega Set because we get that Protein Shake where it increases your attack damage. So that 60 can easily become 90, 120, and it can be a nice way to kind of clean up something on the bench for your against your opponent that you're kind of scared of. Mm-hmm. So I think for now, let's hold off onto this card. It's there. It's from Black Bolt. Put in your binder. When we get the Protein Shake coming out, then we can talk about some decks we can build around this.
Yeah, and then the card I really want to talk about, I talked about the idea of a fossil deck coming out of this set, is the Archeops. So the Archeops is a stage 2 Pokemon. It is in the white flare half. It has the ability Primal Wings. Once your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you may choose to one of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and de-evolve it by putting the highest stage into their hand. So you could put this in with the Caracasa Tortuga lines, with the Relicanths, and you can just basically just cause a whole bunch of headaches with your opponent. If you can't one-shot it and it's an evolution, you can just next turn go up and de-evolve it. And it's your ability, so then you can just do Rock Throw or get it out of the active because it's a 1 retreat cost. Like, you can play around with switching strategies to really just set up damages, for sure.
Or you can pair it off with like Jet Energy or, like you said, switching strategies and take out multiple threats off your opponent's board. Because it doesn't say you can only do it once per turn. It stacks. So if you see, like, oh, you have 2 Gardevoirs there. They're heavily damaged. I can knock those out if they're a Curlia. Choose the first one, choose the second one, get 2 prizes, or it's like, oh, and or you can pair it with Iono, and yes, they go to their hand, and then Iono, that goes into your deck, and you're forcing them to get those cards back.
Yeah.
So a lot of interesting ways to deal with this strategy. I think they've made the fossil cards not necessarily weak, but doable. You can make decks around these strategies for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think the Relicanth, I have to double check how many other Archeops or Archons are in the format to see if this better than the acrobatics that this one has. So you could turn Archeops into a viable attacker if you have to.
And if anything, these are great GLC cards too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they've already
They,
banned Archeops once, so this is a different one.
yeah. So we'll see how the strategy goes. Speaking of GLC cards, I think the Trakian is a nice honorable mention. It's from White Flare, Retaliate for fighting colorless. 50 plus damage. If any of your Pokemon are knocked out, you do 80 more damage, do 130. That can be relevant in GLC because 130 is actually pretty high.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
spiritual reprint of another Trakian from back in the day. It had the same retaliate attack as well.
yeah. So with that, I think that's it for the fighting
Yeah,
types. So let's
yeah.
go into dark. Or is there anything else?
No, the fighting type. That's it. It just feels bad that the fighting type really didn't get much love in this set.
Yeah.
There's a lot more tricks in this for fighting type compared to the other sets that's again giving us a lot of really strong fighting types. So not every set has to give every type a lot of love. So next
Exactly.
will be the darkness Pokemon.
Hmm.
So the first card I want to talk to, I'm going straight to it, is the Zoroark from the White Flare side. Mind Jack is back in the format for a single darkness energy is 30 times the amount of bench Pokemon your opponent has. So if your opponent has a full standard bench, it is 150 for a single darkness energy on a single prize attacker. That is not bad at all. If you're running into a Area Zero deck, then that can go up to 240. So it is
Hmm.
not bad in terms of the Mind Jack. It also has a second attack, Foul Play, for 3 colorless energy. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use this as attack. That is fantastic. The,
Especially with a new special energy card that we're getting with this set.
exactly. So this, I think the Zoroark itself can be its own archetype. Give it another good partner in the darkness typing, and you can do a lot of different types of damage very quickly.
And there's also another tool that we can pair with this to increase your damage output. So Garvors, bye bye.
Yeah, pretty
You can
much.
easily one shot the Garvors or any dark weakness Pokemon. And even then, like 150 is not a bad amount for a single prize Pokemon.
Yeah. And then I'm going to throw this in here. Paired up with the Mandibuzz in this set that has the ability Punt Prey. Grab a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile with 70 HP or less and put it onto their bench. If they have an open bench slot and they have something in their discard pile, plop it in there and make your Zoroark stronger.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good combination right there, and that's not hard to do.
Mm-mm. Absolutely not.
So I think the last dark type Pokemon we should cover is the Hydreigon EX.
Yes.
This people have talked about this. It has the ability Greedy Eater. If your opponent's basic Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack this Pokemon uses, you take one more prize card.
Yeah. Sounds great on paper until you read read its only attack. But
Yeah.
there's ways to go around that, right? So
Oh
we're
yeah.
talking about TM cards. Give it cheaper TM cards, make it attack. Basically, Hydreigon EX is going to be the dark version of Iron Hands, where you need to set it up very particularly in order to take advantage of that ability.
Yeah, and there's like as we said, there's TM Blindside, TM Crisis Punch. You're really going to be being a more TM focused deck with this attacker. I can see this just being a one of in the current Hydreigon deck, just so you can maybe get last couple prizes a little more easily compared to the Terra version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot. It's cool on paper, but there's a lot more to it. And not saying it's difficult or impossible, but you need to create your deck and get those combos going so you can achieve that goal. And I think it takes a little more skill and practice to get that off consistently.
Especially because it's a stage 2. That's, I
Yeah.
think, the consistency piece to it. I think getting the attack and getting all that is easy. Is streamlining a stage 2 attacker is always the hard part because you either have to decide, are you a rare candy deck, or are you a TM evolution deck? And with that being the case, you want other TMs, like TM Machine could be a very good card. Like there's a lot of different pieces that this deck could definitely take advantage of to maximize its capabilities.
Exactly. So we'll see how this card, if it does become a factor. But on paper, it looks cool, but time will tell.
Yeah.
So that's it for the dark Pokemon. So now let's go into the metal.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's 2 metal Pokemon that I want to focus on. They're both from the Black Bolt set. First,
okay, I know there's one we definitely want to talk about. What's this? What's the one other than the elephant in the room?
so other than the Elephant Room, exactly, is the Cobalion. So the reason why I want to talk about this is because of its first attack, Righteous Edge. It only does 20 damage, but I can discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. And I've been a big proponent over the idea that special energy is going to take over the format. And you can see it with the Rocket Energy, with the special energies that we're going to be getting out of this set. We're seeing more and more special energy and Luminous Energy, Legacy Energy getting put into this set to where discarding special energy is going to be more important than ever. Cobalion has always played this kind of utility role in the TCG, where if you see a single prize Cobalion get printed, look at it, because it can do a lot of different things.
Yes.
I think the Righteous Edge is going to be an attack that is going to be your setting up attack, where you're only going to poke for 20, but you're going to get rid of a special energy card. I think that's a good trade-off. The Metal Arms attack for double Metal Colorless, 80, and if it has a tool card, does 120. Not the greatest thing in the world, but depending on the tool card, you could be modifying that to damage even higher. So you could give it a retreat modification card. We'll talk about what one I would recommend in that, or you can give it another tool card from this set. So this card can do a lot and be a really good cover Pokemon in decks, because since its main attack that I really would like to focus on is a single energy that is a rainbow effectively, we have plenty of different basic Pokemon rainbow cards in the format right now.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Cobalion plays a one of in some decks. Before we get to the big card, I kind of want to just mention the Cling Clang from the White Flare. As the gear coding ability, each of your Pokemon with metal energy attached take 20 less damage. That does stack if you have multiple Cling Clangs in play. The metal typing is all about being defensive. I can see this playing in the Stevens Metagross, because we made a very defensive style.
Good shout, yeah.
Stevens Metagross EX deck, and I think this is something to even prevent more damage to it. I can see this being in a lot of GLC decks, because there's a lot of damage reduction in GLC for the metal typing. I know that because that's my specialty right now, even though I'm thinking about expanding, but I've been playing a lot of the metal. So just a real quick shout out to the Cling Clang. I can see this. It is a stage 2 though, so a little bit more setup, but once you get it set up, I think it goes really well in a lot of the metal decks out there.
And I think that's important because of the card that we're waiting, or we're going to say last in the metal typing, is this Genesect EX from Black Bolt. So Genesect EX, 220 basic metal Pokemon, has the ability Metal Signal. Once in your turn, you may search your deck for 2 evolution metal Pokemon, put them into your hand. So being able to accelerate your evolutions, be able to get them consistently into your hand instead of relying on search, like item search, you can just get them from your hands. You get the basics into play turn 1. Make sure Genesect's one of them and just evolve up over time. You don't have to worry about the Rare Candy. If you get the Rare Candy, you can skip a step. This is going to be a really good support Pokemon for the Metal Archetype. I think its attack of Protect Charge for a double Metal Colorless for 150 and take 30 less damage. That's nice, but you're not really going to be wanting to attack with it. I think you really want this Genesect in play as purely as your support setup.
Exactly. So this is a really good support for metal decks. We've been seeing this being paired with Goldango, but any metal archetype will be good. This can be good for even, like I said, Stevens Metagross. Sometimes it's really hard to get the Stevens Metagross set up. This is an easy way to do it. You can pair this off with Scizor, with Archaludon, whatever metal deck you're playing. This is a great support for that.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let's jump into the smallest typing, and it's always going to be the smallest typing in every single set, which is the Dragon type. It has two Pokemon, two lines. One is a line, one is a regular. I want to talk about this Haxorus from Black Bolt real quick. So it's
Yeah, it
stage
does seem
2.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a stage 2 Dragon Pokemon, so it hits nothing for weakness. It has no weakness, but has 2 attacks. The first one is Crosscut, double colors attack, 80, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is an evolution, it does 80 more. Its second attack is Axe Bomber, fire, metal, colorless. If your opponent's active Pokemon is basic, it's straight knocked out.
So with Crispin, that's not hard to power up.
No.
If you're behind prizes, put counter gain on there. The first one, there's a new special energy that can power this up, and you can just do the 160. Again, I think this is a GLC card. I think it's a really strong GLC card, and Dragon's pretty good in GLC right now, especially once they enacted a lot of the bans with the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the second attack is bonkers. Like,
yes,
your basic Pokemon's knocked out. If you can get that metal or that energy cost, and you go against, say, like a Miraidon deck or a Raging Bolt deck, that's easy 2 prizes right there.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's not as hard to get it powered up as you think. I think the hardest part of that deck would be streamlining your evolutions.
Yes, especially for Dragon, there isn't like a straight way to do it. You'll have to manually evolve up. Rare Candy will be your best friend in this deck. But yeah, I think this is definitely a strong contender in multiple formats. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how this new Haxorus plays out.
Absolutely. And then jumping into the colorless archetype, the last type of Pokemon before we go into trainers and energy. The only real card that I want to talk about is the Buffalon EX.
Yeah, it has an interesting ability, being a basic 230 EX Pokemon. Boofer. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. And for Gold Breaker, for a triple colorless, 100 plus damage. If your opponent's active is an EX, it does 100 more, so you can do 200 for just 3 energy. It's bulky. You can pair this with the basic Buffalon as well.
Yes.
And make it even more bulkier. So, not the best EX card, but there is some practicality in some decks with it.
Yeah, I think partnering up with the baby Buffalon, I think of just being a more defensive, colorless Pokemon will be fine. I think if you find a way to pair this up with the Noctowl, so you just need to find a Terror Pokemon that trigger that Noctowl, I think making a colorless, a new version of a colorless wall deck is very plausible, with this being the kind of the center point of that.
I'm actually thinking, what if you play with the Cling Clang?
Yeah,
because it doesn't specify it has to be metal Pokemon. It just says have metal energy.
Just metal energy, make it bulkier. Absolutely.
So. Or yeah, so like you said, it's not the best card, but you can make a fun deck around this, especially with the Buffalons. So, make it more of a wall-like deck. There's plenty of options with that right now. If you want to play it behind, play the Defiance Vest. Like there's options.
Absolutely, there is. So that being said, let's jump into. I would say, with that being said, let's jump into the trainer and energy cards now.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think everyone saw this and they were super excited, is Air Balloon being reprinted in the Black Bolt set, where it is a -2 on retreat cost. And that's going to be massive.
That changes everything for a lot of decks.
So a lot of those 2 energy retreaters are now free retreaters. A lot of cards that need to have, like we talked about that Cobalion, right? The Cobalion is a 2 retreat cost. It also has an attack that says if this has a tool card, it does more damage. Like that, Air Balloon can make Cobalion stronger.
Exactly.
Just by being there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of decks stronger. Anything with 2 retreat costs, now you have a free retreat pivoter instead of trying to put something in there that either has 1 with the rescue board or just 0. So this provides a lot more utility in a lot of decks. And going forward, we can see this. And it being a reprint from Sword and Shield. A lot of people have these cards already. So once this gets street legal, most likely you have Air Balloon already and go ahead and put it in your decks.
Absolutely. Next up are the two fossil cards. So the cover fossil and the plume fossil. They're 60 HP basic colorless Pokemon. They both have a ability that protects them from being damaged while it's on the bench. So it can't. Now, damage is not an effect, but it protects it from effects of damage. So as long as it's not in the active, it is going to be good. So it gives you time to set up either one of those fossils. As I've talked about, I'm fairly high on the fossils in this set, and I think it can be a fun little play around with that for sure.
Exactly. So the next tool card I want to talk about is Brave Bengal. I'm actually really hype on this because I think it makes a lot of single prize decks way more powerful. The attacks of Pokemon this card is attached to, excluding Pokemon from rule box, do 30 more damage to your opponent's active EX. That's all it is. EX is very popular. If you're playing a single prize deck, you're doing 30 more damage. There's a lot of archetypes that need that 30 damage to really bring it up to the next level, and this is a perfect tool card for that.
Absolutely. Next is Energy Retrieval is getting a straight reprint. All this does is already in standard format, but it extends it to regulation mark to a mark I, which extends its life in standard. So it's just a straight reprint, nothing to talk about. The biggest part of that is it just extends its life in standard. The next card I really want to go in depth on is the supporter card Harlequin. So it is a supporter card. Each player shuffles your hand to the deck, and then you flip a coin. If heads, you draw 5, they draw 3. If it's tails, you draw 3, they draw 5. So it's an unbalanced judge, but it can definitely be a high risk, high reward type of card.
Exactly. So we'll see if this is like a 1 or 2 of in some decks. I think more importantly, with this being Regulation Iono has not gotten a extension on its regulation. So once rotation hits, Iono is out. So this could be the new Iono replacement.
Yeah, that and Judge. So for sure.
I think the next part we need to talk about is Hilda.
Oh, absolutely.
I see that very powerful.
Yeah, if you weren't going to talk about it, I was for sure. So Hilda is a supporter card. Search your deck for an evolution Pokemon and an energy card. Put them in your hand, shuffle your deck. I would say this is at least a 2 of in a lot of decks.
Exactly. Like you can get your bench set up and get your energy at the same time. Like we thought Color's Tenacity was decent. This is way better than Color's Tenacity. You can choose whatever energy card you need, whether it be a new special energy that we haven't gone to yet, or you can get Legacy, you can get Luminous, you can get whatever you need to set up and get going. This is super powerful.
Absolutely. Pokegear is getting a reprint. Same thing as Energy Retrieval. It just extends its life to Regulation Set I. Just wanted to put that out there as well. And then the last 3 cards that I think we should talk about all have very significant impact. First is the item card Tool Scrapper.
We all forgot about this card.
Yeah.
Including me.
So you're like, oh yeah, there's no cards. I'm going through this a couple days ago, putting my notes together. I'm like, how did you not tell me Tool Scrapper's coming back to format? You're like, oh, I forgot. This card is bonkers good. So Tool Scrapper is a item card that says choose up to 2 Pokemon tool cards in play attached to Pokemon and discard them. You can pick your own tools if you need to. This is not just discard your opponent's tools. So right now we are in a format where tool cards are very powerful. And being able to discard them is going to be super powerful.
Yes. And sometimes to thin your hand down to do some other actions, you have to attach tools that you don't want to Pokemon. So this is a way to do that. Say you need a restart or you need to draw more cards and then use Tool Scrapper to get that off to attach something else. You can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
So that is a strategy. Remember, thinning is winning, and sometimes we have to do stuff that we don't want to, just so we can continue playing the game.
Absolutely. And then this set is giving us 2 really good special energy cards.
Yes, it is.
So each set has its own. So White Flare has its own, Black Bolt has its own, but one of them is a reprint from a very old set.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the reprint first because I think the reprint is more straightforward, which is Prism Energy. So as long as this card is attached to any Pokemon, it is a colorless energy. If this card is attached to a basic Pokemon, it is a Rainbow Energy. So we know how strong Luminous Energy can be, but we know Luminous Energy can only have it attached one Luminous Energy to a Pokemon. Imagine if you can just do Prism Energy onto your Munkidori and Luminous Energy onto your Munkidori. Your Munkidori can be even triggered 2 different ways and can potentially attack. Or having 8 Rainbow Energies in your deck if you're running, I don't know, Armarouge box.
Yeah, I want to say this is powerful for Armarouge box for sure, because it's another way to get either your Fire Energy cost or your Rainbow Energy cost.
Yeah. So
And it doesn't have that drawback, like you said, like Luminous, where if you have 2 special energies attached to it, it becomes a colorless energy. You can have multiple Prism energies, and as long as it's a basic Pokemon, it's a Fire energy. There isn't that drawback. So this one, I would say, is a little more powerful than Luminous.
Oh yes.
But as you said, having an opportunity to have 8 Rainbow energies in your deck is super strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last card we're going to talk about is a brand new energy card that's in the White Flare half of the set, Ignition Energy. So Ignition Energy, it says if this card's attached to a Pokemon, you have to discard it end of the turn. Sounds very familiar to another energy card we had a couple sets ago.
Yep.
As long as this card's attached to a Pokemon, it is a single colorless attack or single colorless energy. If this attached to an evolution Pokemon, it is a triple colorless energy. So energy, your colorless energy attacks for evolution Pokemon just got dangerous.
Yes. Granted, you have to discard it, but with cards like Hilda, cards like Color's Tenacity, the amount of draw we have in this format, you can get this Ignition Energy, attach it to Evolution, attack, and then there's a lot of, like, Cobalion, you mentioned, is like, oh, like, they're just going to get rid of that energy. Well, you're doing it for them. So that attack becomes way less impactful versus leaving it on there and, like, hoping it doesn't get off. So this is a very strong. It doesn't limit itself to, like, oh, it can't be attached to an EX. It just says evolution.
Yeah.
So that in itself is super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, that is a quick little set review of the Black Bolt White Flare sets that we'll be getting in the end half of July over here in the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cards. There's a lot of impactful cards. I think if you would look at it from a results perspective, you would think this set was very weak. But when you start digging into the set and really getting to see what the set could offer you, I think as deck builders, we are going to be seeing a lot of creativity. We're going to have plenty of time to be able to just dive into these cards before a lot of the cups and challenges come into play. I think the biggest drawback to this set is going to be availability. I think because it isn't a traditional set, it's not having pre-releases, it's not going to be booster boxes. You're going to have to be creative on how you get your hands on the set. You might have to, I would say, strongly recommend people going into the singles market.
Exactly. If there's something you want to buy, just find a local card shop or go online. Just buy them. If you're fortunate enough to get product, great. Enjoy opening those packs and getting whatever card you pull. But I know for me personally, I haven't really been buying product. Where I live, it's not really that available. So I just been whatever deck I want to build. I just buy what I need and just let it be that.
Absolutely. So
with all that being said,
yeah,
we're going to go into everyone's favorite section of the podcast, and it's going to be the road deck of the week. We are doing weekly videos.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that. Devin did do one on another Team Rocket archetype last week. So go ahead and check that out. But with this week, I'm going to give a shout out to one of our locals. We did deck night at my league a couple weeks ago, and as always, we always try to feature the winner of that night on this podcast, just because we love showcasing rogue decks. And honestly, this one's not a surprise that it won, and it's Cynthia's Garchomp.
And to be fair, this deck probably is not going to be considered rogue much longer.
No, and that's something I talked about to my locals. I'm like, if you want to play from Destined Rivals, like this is your time to do it for Rogue Deck Night because it didn't make an impact at any, but I think it's just trying to get figured out.
Mm-hmm.
It got close. It got top 64. It didn't hit the top 32 mark, which is our mark that we do. But yeah, Cynthia's Garchomp is very powerful. We played it on our live stream when we did the Destined Rivals like Rogue Deck review, and it's tanky. It hits hard. It has a lot of good pieces. Again, I am not surprised that it won our night.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to our local Christine. She's actually been on a tear lately. She's a lot of tournaments we play at our shop. She's been winning. So shout out to her. She's definitely been improving as a trainer. She's someone that I've been watching out for when I play in tournaments. I actually hit her round 1 with this, so I know how the deck works. I played Lycanroc, so it was already at a disadvantage for me. But she was nice and let me do about 1,600 damage to her when I told her, I'm like, you have game, but can I just pull this off? She's like, let's go for it. Let's figure out how to do it. And I did 1,600 damage to her. So, because I can't one-shot that Garchomp, because that's Cynthia's power weight. 400 HP, even for a card like Lycanroc, I cannot knock that out. There's just a lot to that deck. It's tanky. It has the right pieces. The only downfall is sometimes it can get a little clunky.
Yeah, it's running a Stage 2 EX and Garchomp. It runs a Stage 1 Anthem and Roserade. It has the Spiritomb for a mid-late game kind of pressure. So it has pieces to really put pressure in all 3 stages of the game. It has a item that will make the EX even bulkier, like we said. It has a lot of support, and it has more support coming. Like, I think there's going to be cards in the upcoming Mega set that will make this better. So
absolutely, that Power Shake. Once Power Shake is released, this deck is going to be meta, if not just under meta.
yeah,
like, it's so powerful, and it's the power tablet of the format for fighting types.
Mm-hmm.
It can one shot anything.
So we are showcasing because again, it did win Dean's Rogue Night, but we were very much like when we were talking before the event even started. I go, "Are you sure you want to consider this Rogue?" Because it has the power level of being able to be like, you know what, this is just under meta. And he goes, well, it doesn't have the results, so we're going to give it its one night to shine, and it probably won't be able to be featured on any of the Rogue Nights at your shop going forward because it's going to get its results. So we just want to showcase it. It's definitely a deck that is long-term because it's Destined Rivals, so it's brand new. Going to get stronger with future cards and future sets. So if you want to pick up a deck and want to just grow with the deck, I think this is going to be one of those decks you can do that.
Exactly. Like, all the Pokemon in there, except for one Pokemon, which is the Munkidori, that's been a new addition to the list, and she played it very well when I went against her. Everything else is Destined Rivals. Maybe some of the trainers will have to rotate eventually, but again, you can play around with that. Like, this is a deck, if you want to pick it up and grow with for the next couple years, do it. It's super powerful. It's tanky. It gives you time to really set it up and play with it. Go ahead and try it out. I'll show you. We will show you this video tomorrow when it uploads on Friday. Just how great this deck is. Like you said, every stage of the game it can do something, and I'm glad she's having fun with it. I've been talking to her since the tournament, and I've been encouraging her. I'm like, take this deck. This is, you play it well. I say this is your deck for the upcoming season.
And then even with the black and white set we just talked about, Hilda makes this deck better. Probably adds a little bit of consistency to the deck with being able to cherry pick your evolutions quickly, get your energy. It's a very efficient deck, so cherry picking
Mhm.
energy makes it even better. Um, I think general lists, I haven't seen her list exactly. You can probably cut some Arvens for some other support, consistency pieces with the upcoming sets. We're not relying on Arven as much, and it can still do very, very well. So there's a lot of change this deck can live through and become and still stay highly consistent.
Exactly. Yeah, keep an eye out for that video tomorrow when it uploads at noon. With all that being said, thank you for watching this episode. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe if you're not subscribed to us yet. We're on our road to 100 subscribers. Once we hit that, we will do a special live stream event where we'll pick 8 rogue decks that we have featured on this channel, and we're just going to do a rogue tournament of the rogue decks, see which one wins out, and just be a nice fun day for me and my buddies to play. So please please subscribe to us so we can make that video for y'all. And yeah, with all that being said, Devin, do you have any final words for our listeners and viewers today?
Really, I'm excited for this black and white set. I'm gonna might try to get my hands on some product and make some opening videos for the channel. There's a lot of really cool cards I'm excited to jump on live and play around with when it does become live and just kind of seeing what happens. We have a long time before Worlds, and I know local cups and challenges are kicking off now, but the meta is not going to be figured out for another month and a half. So I'm excited to
Yeah,
see what happens with that.
me too. Like I said, me and my friends have already been play testing with this set. We're excited. But yeah, well, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. And then have fun playing those sneaky decks, y'all.
Bye, guys.